Well, this is the land they owned, and it's not hard to find because the 4 Mile Prairie Lutheran Church is on land they owned, and it's right near this field that you're looking at. This was shown to us by an old rancher. Inger and I went up there in the late 90s, I believe, and this old rancher took us to the land, and he knew where their house had stood, and he was able to point out where the house, which is now gone. Another picture of their land. This is the house they built, and you notice this open area here. I believe it's what the Texans called a dog house, a dog run house. That is to say, I don't know why they call it that, but I assume the dog may run back and forth between from the front to the back. And it was very popular throughout the South. Interesting, the fieldstone chimney on this side, and you can't see it clearly, but this is a regular brick chimney at that end. Unfortunately, this was taken in the late 90s when they were both, when Lisa had left, and it's a little bit shabby and worn down. But this is the house they lived in and they owned, and the book explains in the footnotes at the end who gave them that picture. They were, after they were married, they had 3 children. This is a portrait about 1850 and then 55 of the family. You notice the finials behind the chair. Nels or Niels, Otto, and their 3rd son wasn't born at the time. And there's a lot about him in the Wilhelm book, and I'm sorry to say it's somewhat sad. This portrait of Wilhelm was made about that time also, and you can see he's prospered, they're doing well. He had a cattle business, they were cattle ranchers, but they also grew, they had sheep and they had all sorts of other animals. So you can see he's been a success. Now here's a fellow who started out as a thief, and by the time he gets to this point in Texas, he's doing well. And then, when he was a young man, he obviously was not religious. He wrote a letter to one of his sisters when about the time that this church was built, a log cabin church. First, this is the original 4 Mile Prairie Lutheran Church. The ones you see now are successors, so it's still there as a church, but of course it looks nothing like this. Well, in any case, by the time that this place was built, Wilhelm had developed a religious attitude, and he went around trying to raise money to bring a pastor from Norway and so forth. So he went through a conversion. Bad kid, good senior, good later on. I think many men, and probably women too, understand how it is to make that transition from a wild childhood or a teenage to later on. So in any case, the Civil War came along, and Wilhelm was very successful and close to the Americans who were in favor of the Civil War. He went into the Confederate Army in 1862, and he knew he was going to leave Lisa, and he deeded her a slave to help along. Now, Lisa was vehemently against slavery. So one of the questions is, how come? How did it happen? And so one of the long explanations in the book is exploration of that question. You can read it and answer it yourself. You think that she knew that they had a slave, that the woman was a slave. What was going on here? One of the things that really strikes me in this account of the slave is the words, let's see if I can find them. That said Negro woman Candace wanted to defend said woman and assigned forever. Well, the slave was a slave forever, according to this deed. And also in another part of it, it says she was born a slave. So it gives you, to me, this is one of the most shocking documents I ever saw, because it conveyed so clearly what slavery was like. When you see this person was a slave for life. Well, he went into the Confederate Army, and he was elected a second lieutenant. In those days, the troops elected their officers, up to captain, and so he was elected second lieutenant. But he only served a very short time as the second lieutenant. This is 1862, and the 30th day of April. And so he was, after 3 months. And of course, one of the things that I have to, that you find in the Wilhelm book is why was he such a short officer, such a short time as an officer. 2 times after that, he was after he got out being an officer, he was drafted back into the Confederate Army. He never saw any battles or anything like that, and but he was in the Confederate Army briefly. Now that's where I'm going to stop telling the story of his life. But let me say, unfortunately, it does not have a happy ending, and I won't tell you exactly what the ending is. That's something you can find out on your own as to how that happened. But this is his gravestone in the 4 Mile Prairie Church Cemetery. And you can see that it's correctly spelled his name, at least Americanized version. But Frederickshall is misspelled, and he was born in 1822. So, historians and people who are doing stuff like that, we make mistakes at times. And this is one. And I probably have made some mistakes in the Wilhelm book. And as many of you being familiar with Norway, you may find them. But that's okay. So what I want to do is, knowing that he ended with a unhappy ending, I wanted to have some happy pictures at the end. Now this is Beauregard in Sarpsborg. It's still there. It's now owned by the Orkla company, and that portrait of Jens Fairchild was there. I'm not sure it is there anymore, but I saw it hanging in there when the Beauregard was owned by Beauregard Lignotech, which is a lumber specialty product company. And so this is the picture that his great-grandfather, of the home of Wilhelm's great-grandfather. This is a picture I took in the Frederickshall Theater, and it's of the curtain in the theater. And I had the great privilege to be taken through it by the woman who was the curator. She manages the theater. Interestingly, she grew up in Toronto and speaks English as well as I do, or better. And she took me through, and as we were sitting, as she had me sit out in the audience, and she dropped this curtain down, and I was stunned. I mean, here's this fabulous painting of Frederiksson Festi and so forth. And it was just extremely impressive and the theater is still in use, and there's still events held in the hall there. Well, one more happy picture is this is the great-great-great-granddaughter of Wilhelm and Elisa. She's also called Elisa, and this is, Blue Bonnets. If you know Texas, you know the parents when she was about 3 years old made this picture of her. We have another picture of what she looks like now. She's about 11 years old. Interesting to me, it seems to me like some of the family traits have gone down. Broad forehead, eyebrows here. If I can get back to it quickly, if you look at Wilhelm's portrait here, broad forehead, light eyebrows. I don't know whether they are or not. Well, that's the end of the story, excepting I do hope if you get the book that you will read the prologue and the epilogue and the acknowledgments, because the acknowledgments tell you where all this stuff came from, who I talked to, who we visited, and I just have to mention that one of the ones who helped with the Light on the Prairie book was Anna Sadlukin, who translated some of the documents that are in that. So you see all these people who made the book possible. Writing books is a team sport, so you have to have a large team, and I'm trying to acknowledge them all at the end of the book. There's also a long set of notes which has all kinds of additional historical information and tells you where some of the other material came from. And also there's a bibliography, which you have to do this when you're writing a history book, but it's interesting to run through those. You don't have to read them in detail, but just get an idea of the sources where all this came from. Well, okay, that's all I'm going to say for right now. If people want to ask questions, I don't hear one, so I'm going to have help.
Thank you very much. That's a wonderful story.
Yeah.
And when you think about this happening at the time, this is one of the important footprints, Norwegian footprints in the state of Texas.
Yeah.
And we are now in 2015. We think there are about between 10 and 12,000 Norwegian expats living here. And they're dealing with oil. I mean, this is a very short time span when you think of the story you told now and up to this day. And I think I've lived in Minnesota for a number of years. Most of us have some relatives somewhere in the United States. But this is a story that's been untold, that you are unfolding right now to us, which I think is wonderful. You bring history back to the contemporary setting we're in, and you look back and see what people did. I don't know, how did I do without air conditioning, all those mosquitoes? How did I do it? I hear complain, well, it's so cold today. You know, this was a different storyline. Can you take a few questions from the audience?
Yes, if they like, but I may have to have Terry.
What we do, the question we get up, and Terry will help repeat the questions.
Repeat them if needed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ivar, yeah.
Ivar.
How many Norwegians were living in 4 Mile Prairie at the time they lived there?
How many people are living in 4 Mile Prairie today?
No, not that time.
Oh, at that time, not that time.
Norwegians.
Oh, okay, Norwegians at that time.
Probably about 200 or 300. I think they got up that big. But I'm not really sure of the answer to that. But it was a fairly sizable group. And, Clang Pearson, I believe you mentioned him earlier, was buried in the Lutheran Church Cemetery there. So I would guess it might have been as many as 200 or 300 people.
Could I just one piece of information? Can I borrow this?
Sure.
Sure.
Since I came here in 2010, my wife Sonia and I very early got engaged. First thing we did, we went to Clifton. And since then, together with this big team behind us, There is a Clegg Pearson Institute for Culture and Education established in Clifton, and what we did, we linked Clifton up to Tysvær. It's a community inside Stavanger where Clegg Pearson came from. So we created a bridge between the two, and there's going to be a Clegg Pearson seminar in Clifton in October this year in that context. And it would be a wonderful chance if you could be there in that context, and we can help connect you up with that. So, more questions and comments? Please.
So,
Can you take this?
Oh.
Yeah, if you take the mic, that's
Thank you.
Right.
so Charles, I was wondering, how did Elisa make the selection of Wilhelm to come with her? And sort of what was the arrangement between them?
Okay. How did Elise select Wilhelm, and what was the arrangement between them?
Okay.
I know you didn't want to get into that too much, but
Well, it's true, I didn't want to get into that too much because it's such a wonderful thing to try to find an answer for yourselves in the book. And I've built that up to try to figure out not only why she found him, how she found him in the Tudors, and why she brought him with her to Texas, but also why, how, and under what circumstances she married him. So all I can say is I have to refer you to the book.
Sounds good.
And the way this works, Charles, will you be signing books here or outside?
I think we'll move outside. Yeah.
Okay, very good. There's one more question in the back. Hi, Joanne.
Hi. Hi. I'd like to say that I want to thank the Norwegian Society of Texas for continuing the support of Charles Nader Russell and the Saab Wilkins and those who have led this group for 40 years. It was originally founded in 1975.
I think you have to speak up.
Oh,
Can you?
okay. Is this on?
It was on, but you may have to come over.
Okay. Yeah. I want to thank the Russells for continuing the time to support the Norwegian Society of Texas, which was founded in 1975, because it doesn't normally thought there were Norwegians in Texas. So, with various people here, it was founded, and one of the things was to bring King Olav the King Olav here, and for their founding. And there are others who can tell you about this, of course. And they celebrated the founding of Clifton, North Community, and Cranville's Gap on that road there. And the Clegg Pearson colony, their third colony of Norwegians, was successful. NST supported Charles through Mark for the second book that you wrote. And that was 5 years ago because it was their 35th anniversary. Now it's their 40th anniversary, which we'll be celebrating in months here now. So we want to say thank you very much for continuing this and for continuing the history of Norwegians in Texas, both historically and also now for the new community who runs NST that's again more Norwegian. And we thank the Consul General for his support of the Norwegian community since he's come here, and for the historical support.
God, I'm not sure how to phrase this, but I would say all your life you've been a person of faith. It's not something that you've ever proselytized. And I'm curious how you view Elisa's embrace of faith and how you understand that and relate to it, and why you find that interesting and intriguing in both an intellectual and, I would say, emotional level.
Well, Elisa was an early women's rights advocate, and she wait a minute. How are we doing now?
Yeah, good.
She was an early women's rights advocate. It's very clear in what she writes, and her divorce from Sven Foyn and the general story of her life, and especially when you read her documents like those in Lady with a Pen and Light on the Prairie, you can see those that kind of attitude and thinking sticking out. She was definitely an Enlightenment person, a person right out of the French Enlightenment, the early Romantic era, and that I think she wanted independence, and she wanted to be free of the kind of restrictions she faced in her homeland, and that was one of the reasons she chose to come to Texas. Have I got the type of answer you wanted?
Did you feel an affinity intellectually with her? And
Yes, very much. I'm a secular religious person. That is, say I do go to church regularly, but I'm also I admire her thought because it was a rational approach to religion. She had one thing that I'm almost afraid to mention. She didn't believe in the divinity of Jesus. However, she was deeply religious and very much, a Jesus follower. So she was very rational in her way she approached religion. But that doesn't mean she wasn't religious. She was deeply so. And I sympathize with that way of thinking. So that's true.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just have one question about your books. Are some of them being translated into Norwegian?
I wish they were. The only trouble is, here and I, when we were in Oslo once, we went visiting two publishers and asked about whether they would have any interest in this was particularly reference to the Undaunted book. And they were very nice about it and talked to us. But they said, look, the only kind of book that we translate is one like about Mao Zedong or something like that. These people are too small, And I am a great believer in small people. And the prologue of the Wilhelm book tells about that. So, so we have no luck so far. I still am hoping that we could have that happen.
Well, in that case, we're just going to go outside here and we're just going to buy lots of books and you're going to sign them and we're going to have a great evening. Thank you again.
Okay.